Hey, what's up, everyone? You know, I Got Soul in Stereo podcast is back here. We got one person here who doesn't eat beef, got another person here who only listens to Keith, and I am the HOSC, and we are back. And, guys, I want to start off with some big news that happened last week. We got a huge release. Everyone on the internet's going crazy about it. It's the release of Musiq Soulchild's new single, I Do.
I thought you were talking about Rihanna for a second.
Yeah, that's not.
I was about to go off on a
You would
rant,
see me hit the leave button so quick if that was the discussion we've had. I have fussed about that album for 4 or 5 days now, but I won't bring my bitter vitriol to this conversation. Let's talk about music. Let's talk about something decent.
Barry Barrs is waiting on that Rihanna review, Ed, just so you know.
A lot of people are waiting on a lot of things that aren't going to happen. I'm sorry to break your heart, Barry. It ain't coming.
So I like the music single. It grew on me because it has a weird chorus and a weird song structure, but I like it. I mean, I think it's something back to some of his earlier work. What about you guys?
I agree. Like, when I first heard it, the structure is a little off, and not in a bad way. It's just in a different way. So when I first heard it, I was like, that's okay. But then on subsequent listens, it kind of grew on me a little bit more. I do think that, as tends to happen on the internet, we kind of hype up everything like it's the second coming. But beyond that, it's a good single, and I'm looking forward to the album.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a solid single. The thing about Musiq is, if you look at his discography, especially with the singles he's released, he's always put out really good singles. So it's hard to compare this song to his previous stuff, but I mean, if you guys had to, where would you kind of rank this in terms of his singles?
I don't think it's fair to compare. I don't know. I don't want to even compare.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little tough to put it there. I mean, and again, I don't want to discredit it. It's a very, very solid single. It's a very good single. I wouldn't put it at the top tier by any means, but it's certainly worthy of recognition.
Fair enough. Plus, it just came out last week, so it might have to grow on us a little bit, but it's all good.
Yeah, let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah. So now back to the Rihanna album. No, I'm just kidding.
I have a question for you guys.
What's up?
Who killed R&B?
Woo! Tom, after our last podcast, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my best not to get Tom in any more trouble. And then here we go again.
Yep.
Direct all emails, tweets to E.T. Bowser on Twitter. Don't hit up my boys, hit up me. Who killed R&B? I will say radio killed R&B.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm looking at the adult contemporary R&B charts.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, Drake, Hotline Bling.
Exactly. That is what I'm talking about. Because what has happened post-2000, I mean, I can't throw a date on it, but mid-2000s is when it happened, when there was this opportunity for, well, I will tell you even before then, the thing that I noticed it the first time was when, back in the days of Midnight Love, everybody loved Midnight Love, BET, Midnight. I used to work the night shift, so when I used to get home, that would be the first thing on. Why are they playing 50 Cent 20 Questions on Midnight Love? Like, when I noticed that shift, that's when I noticed that something weird was going on, because in the quest for, spins and ratings or whatever, we started infiltrating hip-hop into R&B because hip-hop was becoming a bigger cash cow. So they're starting to leech off of that success. And, there's definitely similarities between the two genres, of course, but when we started trying to shoehorn that into what R&B sounded like, we've got legitimate people on Twitter sending me tweets saying that Fetty Wap's songs are R&B songs and Future songs are R&B songs. Let me tell you what they are. They are trash. They are not R&B songs or rap songs. I'll go on record for that for you Future Hendrix fans. Stop listening to garbage. Anyway, back to the point at hand. I think that's when we saw the changeover, when the playlist got weird and we started, the lines between R&B and hip-hop started getting really blurred, and we started expecting R&B to not sound like this SWV album that I just listened to earlier today. We'll get on that a little later on, and to sound more like hip hop, Hotline Bling, for example. And that blurred the lines and pushed out the sound of R&B that we accepted and has grown to be R&B. And then we kind of put an R&B label on stuff that's straight up hip hop. I think that's what happened.
Another point too. Can I just make a quick point too? It's not even fair that you have artists like Layla Hathaway and Johnny Gill, and they've got to compete for spots on radio with Drake and even The Weeknd. And it's like, what are we doing to ourselves when they have to keep that in the back of their head? I'm going for ads on radio against these artists. It's just not fair.
And that's why we have artists coming out with, I ain't going to name any names, but we have some established R&B artists out here shucking and jiving like they're 19 years old in the club with songs with Sage Gemini and cousin Chris Brown in them, and it's betraying their sound because they are trying to, and I can't blame them, brothers and sisters got to eat. They're trying to get on the radio, and it's just totally betraying their sound.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys think it's radio that killed R&B, or do you think it's the fans that killed R&B? Because, the radio's going to play the music, but, the fans, as listeners, we have to be able to differentiate the two. You got to have a standard, as to what is good and what's bad. And I think all three of us, we have that filter to know that, there's good stuff and there's bad stuff. And I don't know if everyone else has that filter.
Well, you can't put it all on just, there's equal blame here, because you can say, oh, well, it's up to the fans to determine it. And you're right, because the fans determine what's on what radio does. If fans don't support something, then radio doesn't care. Like, they have no allegiance to this music. They're just going to do whatever gets spins. So that's what they're going to do. But on the other hand, the reason why this is a catch-22 is if all you hear are the same 4 songs in your brain every day, then that's what becomes, you become accustomed to hearing that sound. So to you, that does become R&B. And that's why you got people talking about it. Rihanna's an R&B artist because she's on that hip-hop station. Like, no, but that's what you're fed. So it goes both ways. It's equal fault, really.
Well, the way I see it, and this is like, I'm not blaming anyone, but you see people complaining, oh, there's no good music on the radio, and those are the same people who are turning up in the club to those crappy songs they're complaining about. We've seen it. Me and Kyle have seen it. It's like people just aren't willing to make a difference, aren't willing to even care enough to support the artists they grew up listening to, and it's kind of disappointing. And this is not everybody. There's fans. YouKnowIGotSoul and Soul. The stereo readers are very educated, smart fans of music, and they just cut through and know where to find the good R&B they want to hear. So, it's just something I've observed.
Oh, you're exactly right. Nothing gets me more frustrated than people saying, oh, there's no good R&B out. When's the last time that Case put out an album? Last year? Like, you have to pay attention to the genre and not just complain all the time. And it's not hard. This is 2016. You can go to YouTube or Twitter or Instagram and follow your favorite artists, and they're going to tell you what they're doing. So it should be no surprise to anyone that thinks the last John B. CD was in 1997. You've just been asleep for 20 years.
Yep. Now, Ed, being that you lived in Kentucky for a little bit, right. Bryson Tiller, is he an R&B artist? Because, I'm looking at the urban charts right now. He's flying up the charts. Is he an R&B artist?
I categorize him as an R&B artist. He is not my favorite R&B artist. And I know I got into a discussion last Monday on Twitter about this very thing. And, props to him. Let him do his thing. I'm not a huge fan. And, again, I do think that a lot of what he's doing is a little overrated. I do consider it R&B because I think that when you incorporate the melodies and what he's attempting to do with R&B is just he's taking R&B and squishing it into the mold of how radio defines R&B in 2016, which is kind of watered down Drake hip-hop-ish sound. So although I don't think that he is straight up hip-hop, he is conforming his R&B to be this new sound. And his roots are R&B. You can tell from his writing, you can tell from his vocals, but it just ain't my thing, player. It ain't my thing.
You know someone who I will not blame? His record labels. Can I tell you why? It's a business. It's a business. They're in the business of making money. They're not in the business of protecting the music and protecting the culture. So if they found a way to make themselves more money, they're going to do it. I mean, that's the way I see it. I mean, does someone have to have a counterpoint to that?
Not on this end, because it's what I've been saying for years. You can't get mad at the labels. They don't care. If we come to a point where the only thing that's selling is a cat screaming on the side of the street while tires screech past it, and we listen to that on a loop for 5 minutes, then that's what you're going to hear on your radio all day, every day. Like, they are just doing what sells. If you don't like it, don't buy it.
Yep, 100%.
But you can't blame the artist now, because there's a lot of artists who don't have the integrity. They just want to get famous quick. They want to get rich quick. They don't want to lose their career in music, so they'll do whatever it takes to remain popular or get that one song that's catchy. And I don't know, do we blame them, or do we say, hey, they're doing what they have to do? Like, what do you guys think about that?
It depends. Like, it's one thing, again, I'm going to go to this SWV album Still that drops on, I'm not sure when this podcast is going to run, but it's going to drop February 5th, which is a few days from when we're recording. And I just listened to it, and we'll have a review up on I Got Soul pretty soon, the next day or so. They have one song called Love Song on that album. That song is straight up muscled on the beat hole. He didn't produce it, but it sounds just like it. Okay, that's cool. However, the rest of the album, the other 9 songs, are just straight up old school 90s R&B flavor, and the sound is just so great. If you're a fan of it, you'll love this album. So I know that you have to do things to stay current, but you have to also retain a little bit of your sound. So you do one single that sounds a little current and has some elements of stuff, that's cool, as long as you aren't totally selling yourself out and the content is still strong. You're not talking about, girl, I'm in the club and you're 55 years old. Now, you can incorporate that sound for a single or for one track on your album to be like, hey, this is current and my stuff doesn't sound super old. But when you straight hoeing yourself out, when you are an old man or woman trying to sound like you're 19, or when you can make your whole album sound like that, that's when we have beef.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kyle?
I mean, just look at it like this right now. I'm looking at the urban charts right now. Ed is calling Bryson Tiller R&B, so that's one R&B song. The next one is Chris Brown's Back to Sleep, and then after that, all of the rest are hip-hop songs. So it's tough, man. It's tough. I mean, somehow you got Adele charting on the urban charts, but none of these R&B artists that we love, they're not on there. It's crazy.
Whatever happened to, I'm just going to make music for the love of the music. If I happen to get famous off it, then that's cool. If I don't, I'm just going to keep making the music because I love it.
Well, please, this ain't 1989 anymore. People get in this business to make money, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay. If you're talented and you want to do that, that's fine. If you want to see this as a career, but please come with some substance. Don't just do stuff because the next man is doing it. No era pissed me off more than that auto-tune T-Pain era, because everybody was like, I can do this, and everybody sounds like idiots. But they're doing it because, for whatever reason, people were buying it. So as long as, we're in this to make money, okay, make money. That's cool, but bring some sort of substance to it.
Yep. And,
go ahead, Kyle.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of substance, we got some breaking news, Tom. I was on SoInStereo.com earlier. Ed did an album review and gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Oh, yes, we didn't discuss that. I meant to discuss that before we came on air, yes.
King. A 4.5.
King's album. And listen, I will say this and go on record. There was a point while I was listening to that album where I was like, this might get a 5. Like, it was that good going. It slowed down a bit on the second half. That's why I didn't go to full Monty. But there was a point where I was like, am I going to give this a 5? Is it this good? You have to go war with yourself, because you're like, dang, So, yes, King's album, and for our readers who aren't familiar with King, they are a trio, an R&B trio who dropped an EP forever ago, like just 3 songs and then just vanished off the earth, and no one knew what happened to them. And they suddenly, in the past few months, resurfaced. They have an album, and it lived up to the potential. It blew me away.
Who would you compare them to, for those who aren't familiar, if anyone?
I don't know if I can compare. There's certainly not anyone on the scene. They have elements of... sometimes it reminded me of Groove Theory a little bit because, you got these just kind of heavenly vocals over this lush production. But as far as currently in the game, there's no one I can really compare them to.
Yeah. Interesting. They were also on an Eric Roberson track on his last album. That was pretty good.
I didn't know that he was on. They were on Roberson. I knew they were on Black Radio a few years ago, but I missed the Eric Roberson track.
They were on. I can't think of the name right now, but Eric told us the story. I remember this. He was in a restaurant after he performed in some city, and they approached him and they saw him there, handed him the CD, and he said him and his wife played it the whole way home, and after that the collab happened. Pretty cool.
I can't blame them. If they handed them what I heard, I'm like, yes, I would have been on the phone before I got off the road.
The song was called Just Imagine. It was on his album The Box, 2014. So another thing I wanted to mention, we sent out a tweet, and it might have rubbed some people the wrong way. We said, we dig through thousands of submissions and very few make it to the site. Lack of vocal talent on radio makes everyone think they're an artist these days. So just to expand on that, we get, hundreds of thousands of submissions at our email submissions at YouKnowIGotSoul. It's kind of sad how few of them ever make it to the site, and we listen to every single one. But just the quality has gone down so much. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, is it we're running out of talent, or are artists no longer taking the time to perfect their craft?
No. And I don't want to speak for, I got soul on this because, you guys have your own system and a way to differentiate which artists you want to feature and not. And shout out to my man Rich, who does a lot of work on that end. But I know on Soul and Stereo, I get a lot of artists who come and try to reach out and want their material shown and heard. And I mean, let's just be honest. Let's be honest, because that's what your boy does. The way the internet is set up in 2016, anybody can have a makeshift studio at their house. Anybody can come out with a CD. Anybody can come out with a stream. Anybody can present their music and put it out to the world. And back 10, 20 years ago, to even get to the place to be able to do that said something about your ability and your creativity. There were so many artists that we probably never heard of that got studio time that just couldn't get over the hump. But they were so talented they were able to get studio time. In 2016, I could get studio time, and I sound horrible. So I think, unfortunately, a lot of artists, because they're able to put their stuff out and put their stuff on their Facebook page, and everybody like, girl, you sound great, that we hype ourselves up to think, okay, I'm on the level of a major label artist. But let's be real, everybody can't be to that level. So for those artists who don't get their music featured on the respective sites, don't take it personally. Just take it as a time to, okay, I didn't do it this time. What do I need to do to get stronger? What do I do to make my music better? And how can I reach another audience by making myself stronger? So I would hope, instead of throwing shade at the actual sites for not posting your stuff, that you go back, look at yourself, and say, how can I make my craft stronger? Because if your stuff is good, if you come out, you pull up a King and an Eric Roberson and that brother driving home and you hearing this and you're like, wow, I got to put you on my album, that says a lot about your talent. But just because you're able to put your vocals on some Pro Tools doesn't mean that you're the next Alicia Keys. So just don't be in your feelings. That's all I'm saying. Work a little hard and get it out there.
Well, there's another problem, and, I don't really want to speak on it because, it'd be calling people out, but I think...
Speak on it, dog. Speak on it.
Some of the websites, some of the websites are also, the problem. I actually had a submission the other day from someone who wanted their music featured on the site. I listened to it. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't a fit for our site. And I let the person know that, let them know to, continue doing their thing and, feel free to submit more music in the future. And, they hit me back and they're like, well, how much would it cost for me to get this song featured? I'm like, what do you mean cost? And they were like, well, other websites, if they pay them, they'll feature your song on the site. And, we don't believe in that system, but, if you work with a system like that where you're paying a website to get your song featured, that's exposure. But I don't know. At that point, it's about money and not even about talent.
Man, we got into the place where it's blog payola now. What?
Yep. Oh yeah. There's contracts and everything. In fact, I've heard of artists who paid, and but the thing I was thinking about that. Can you really knock them? Because websites are a business too. Blogs are a business too, just like record labels, just like radio. So on one hand, it bothers me that they would do that. They don't have the love in it like we do, where they do it because they really care. But hey, that's the world we live in now. These websites run around because they get money off it. They're not in it for charity. Like we do this because we love it. We're not doing this for a living. And unfortunate reality is everyone's not that same way. So they're going to take whatever money they can get out of it.
That is so depressing to me. As many of you guys know who listen to this, like I am a full-time journalist in real life. And there are times where on our website where people will want to get some of their writings featured, and they will email me and be like, well, how much do we have to pay to get this thing I wrote on your site? Like, we don't do that. That's a breach of ethics. Like, we don't put stuff on the site because you paid us. And because I also am a blogger, I take a lot of those journalism ethics to my blog itself, and there's a lot of stuff that I've been presented with like that, and I'm like, I ain't doing that stuff. That's a breach. Like, I feel like my readers deserve more, and I can't live with myself if I'm just letting people do whatever or reviewing albums because somebody gave me a few dollars for it. I don't care who you are. If your album trash or album trash, I'm gonna tell the world. So. I feel like that's what we have to be as far as for what we do. I understand what Tom's saying. Some of these folks this is how they make their living, but I'm straight. I would rather have the integrity and my readers to know when Ed says an album is 4.5, it's hot, and not because King gave him some dollars. Like, I just want to have that kind of credibility with my fans.
Ed, how much did King pay you? Let's keep it real.
King gonna have to pay me a lot more than what I'm getting home, and I need to be walking. If you see me walking down the street with a gold crown and a flowing robe, then you know King came up off that dollar. But I seriously doubt they went through with that.
Oh man.
Well, guys, I want to give a treat to the listeners of last week who sat through our 10-minute rant on Tank's new album.
Oh.
So the numbers are in for Tank's new album. He sold about 15,000, which is actually a little more than his last album, Stronger. So that lets us know a couple of things. That lets us know that, the fact that he made it a sequel, it was a success because, the fans bought into that. And remember, guys, we have to consider the fact that with each album, you're expected to see your numbers decline just in with the state of R&B and how it is right now. So for him to maintain that number or even have it higher than his last album, that's a good thing. But right now I'm concerned about, is the label and is Tank looking at those numbers and saying, okay, those numbers are higher because of the title, or, okay, those numbers are higher because of the music?
Well, can I just make an interesting observation I've found? He's been retweeting a lot of fans, and people are making comments like, oh, wow, Tank's, he always puts out a real R&B album and, thank you, Tank, for giving us another great R&B album and things like that. I didn't really see it, but what I noticed was there was a lot of younger people who were saying that. So I found that really interesting. I didn't see it, I was just trying to figure out who's saying this, who's calling this real R&B, because Tank went more trendy this time around. And maybe he was able to reach a younger audience this time. I'm not quite sure. But it didn't seem like, from what he was retweeting, many of the older people who we thought his fans were engaging with him about the album. So I wonder how they feel.
Please, this real R&B tag is just something that fans just use to just hashtag and throw on something. Like, it's like how we call everything a classic now. Like, just because it's okay, it's a classic. I didn't call King a classic, and I gave it a very stellar review, because you can't call something a classic that hasn't been out longer than a day or two. Like, it's dumb. A classic is something that has changed the industry going forward, and that's something that only takes time. Real R&B is just like another one of those tags where it's just like, real R&B is back, this Tank album is great. Well, you know, is it, or are you just saying it because that's what you've been taught to say? So, I mean, if they loved it, good for them. It ain't on my iPod, but all right.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Tank goes from here. I mean, you know, the future of his music, which direction it's going to go in. Will Atlantic even want to still have him signed? I mean, there's not many R&B artists left on labels. And how much? I wonder what the expectation for Tank to sell was from Atlantic's point of view. I mean,
that's a good question too.
Yeah, like 15,000 doesn't seem like much. The label's got to make money. I know Tank tours a lot; they can make money off that, but it's interesting to see. I don't know.
I mean, it may seem like for fans who are expecting it to sell like, you know, 500,000 or whatever the original Sex, Love and Pain did, like, it's easy for us to sit back and do that. The label may not have expected to do more than 10,000. They're like, hey, this is great. So we don't really know behind the scenes if they consider this a victory or not. So it's really all on them. And as much as I've kind of like putting Tank through the ring in the past couple of weeks, like, he is still a viable voice. He still has a very strong role in R&B. He's still one of our best voices, and I still want him to succeed. So I don't want this to be a setback for him.
I feel like we need artists like Tank to oh, go ahead, Kyle.
No, go ahead. Finish your point. I was going to move on.
I feel like we need artists like Tank to thrive and do well. And maybe this could be his way of getting in with the younger generation and then kind of going back to what we're used to in the future and maybe capturing some of that audience. Because he's a true musician, a writer, a vocalist. So, I don't know. We need Tank to do well, I feel like. He's one of those artists. And it'll just be interesting to see the outcome of all of this.
Right. I'm going to ask you guys, K. Michelle just put out a new single, a little bit. Have you guys heard that song yet?
I have. You know, she was written by my girl Kelly Price, so I quickly hopped on that to check it out. I'm a big Kelly Price fan.
It was too churchy for me, Ed.
I will say that this
one was joke.
Inside joke, people, inside joke. But my point is, I liked the song. I thought it was okay. I liked it a little bit better than some of K. Michelle's previous efforts from the last album. So I think it's a good start, and I'd like to see where she goes from here.
What do you think, Kyle? What are you expecting with this new album, Kyle?
Well, I mean, the song itself, I think, is good. Really reminds me of the mid-2000s, which, you know, I'm a big fan of. With the album itself, it's tough. I mean, I think K. Michelle has had a solid body of work. I'm just waiting for that one, you know, moment where she's able to break into the mainstream like how Keisha Cole did it. But I don't know, maybe times have changed to where she's not able to do it. But in terms of, it's going to be solid R&B. She's going to have a little bit of, you know, her country roots in the album as well. But, I mean, I'm expecting a solid album. She hasn't really had a bad album yet. So I would like to see some variety, you know, because, I mean, a lot of her albums are ballad heavy. But, I mean, I'm interested to see what she does with it. I mean, I think the last one had some solid records on there. So best of luck to K. Michelle.
Do you think it's going to continue to be, I was going to say, do you think it'll be continued, she'll continue to go that ratchet direction, or will she clean up the lyrics a little bit more?
See, that's exactly the point I was about to make, Tom. My issue with K. Michelle earlier is because, you know, she came off, now don't get it twisted, a lot of people think that, like, she came up on that reality show and then became an artist, but she was an artist before that. The show she was on just helped kind of further her fame a bit. And I felt like to play into her reality show character, she just went way overboard with the ratchet, and it was annoying. But I think she's toned it down a lot recently, and I think her music will be better for it. And it's okay to be relatable and real and to do songs that kind of speak to your audience, but just tone it back a little bit, player. That's all I'm asking. And it seems like she's doing that a little bit.
Man, I think people forget that R. Kelly helped put her out many years ago. And unfortunately her deal didn't work out. I think that was RCA. And so that's a big co-sign right there. And she was the only guest on one of his last albums. I think it was Write Me Back. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, she's got talent. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think with her clean lyrics, that's going to translate into more chart success. I guess it was that her lyrics at time were too ratchet, so cleaning it up, I think, will do good for her. Maybe let her be the voice of, the next generation in terms of female vocalists. So we'll have to see what happens.
I mean, there's only so much that the ratchet niche can take you. Like, it's good for some immediate response and, a little bit of feedback, but it's only going to take you so far.
So we've got two more albums coming out Friday. Well, we talked about SWV. That's coming on Friday. We've got King. And then we've got one other. Wait, it's escaping me right now. Is it this Friday? I feel like this was a big week for R&B.
I know we've got Tweet in a couple weeks, but that's not this week.
Okay, that's a few weeks away. I was thinking about Tweet and then Maya. Oh, Maya's, but that's on Valentine's Day. I'm actually anticipating that album, guys, the Maya one.
I want to see where she goes with it. Maya have always been, to me, kind of inconsistent. Like her albums, the last Maya album I really liked was, what was the name? I think it was like Fear of Flying. It was really old. One of her, it was like her sophomore album or something. Because a lot of her albums are like, I don't know, they're kind of schizophrenic. Like sometimes they're kind of poppy, and then they'll do the R&B stuff, and then the singles are good, and then the album stuff is filler, and it's just really uneven listen. So I'm really interested in seeing what she brings this time.
So what are you expecting on the Tweet album? Kyle, you go first.
Well, I mean, how long has it been since Tweet's last album? 2005, is it?
Yeah, like 5 or 6.
That's crazy if you know it. I'm expecting it just to be good R&B. Tweet, luckily, is, she's amazing. She's the master at harmonies. I'm just expecting, I think, her last 2 albums, so I'm expecting good things. I mean, Tweet has a very distinctive sound, that very acoustic, vibey sound. But, Tom, I think you said that she's also working with Timbaland and Missy on this album.
Yeah, that was confirmed. I think it's only going to be for one song, though. So,
okay.
And it'll be interesting to see which Timbaland we get on there. I mean, Missy's always going to hold it down with the writing, but it'll be interesting to see, what Timbaland's going to give her, because obviously we know of their work in the past. So, by the way, the other album I was talking about was Lion Babe. They're coming out. Their debut is coming out. We talked about that one last time. That's on Friday.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was so soon.
Yeah, that's coming right along. Then we've got DJ the Chicago Kid's coming in a few weeks. Ed, are you getting into him?
I am okay into him. I mean, I recognize the talent, but he is one of these artists that have a ton of buzz online, and there hasn't been yet a song that I'm like, oh, this song is awesome. It's just been like, that's good. That was a good feature. That was a good duet he did with whoever. But there's been nothing yet that's like, oh, this was awesome. So I'm waiting for him to wow me. And I know a lot of fans are just salivating at the fact that this album is coming out very soon. So we'll see. But right now I'm kind of on the fence.
I feel like he's stuck in a generational gap. In terms of he's such an old soul. He's in his mid to late 20s. But he's still got to consider commercial viability. And it's almost like he seems, based on what I've heard, he doesn't know whether to go younger, to go older, to kind of make it work. And Kyle, do you have any what is an artist like that supposed to do?
I mean, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be in A&R right now. It's tough.
Yes.
I mean, BJ, the Chicago Kid, Elijah Blake, even Luke James, these guys are all talented, but It's hard right now. Like, what do you do? Do you try to make a mustard song just to get on the radio, or do you go the adult contemporary route when you're only in your mid-20s? That's a little too early to be doing that. So, I mean, it's tough. Once you go to that mustard route, I feel like you can't go back. That you're stuck in that lane forever.
And this is another Motown release. They had a similar issue with Stacey Barth with her debut. That it's like there was just no lane that ever opened up for her. Like, where does she fit into the landscape? Like, such a talented artist. But then it was like it's almost like they didn't know where to go with her. And unfortunately, the album didn't, do quite what they had hoped. And hopefully it's not going to be a similar situation when they put out BJ's project, And a lot of these younger artists are falling into that same trap. You mentioned Elijah Blake. Luke James, I feel like, was in the same zone. It's like such talented artists, but it's like they don't know how to fit them into the landscape to be successful, these major labels.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the shape of radio, because when you talk about success, and success is still, by and large, measured by spins and this and that, and there's a strategic, specific formula that's working on radio right now. And if you're not mumbling and stumbling like Future all over the place and whining all over beats, or you got Mustard on the beat producing that same beat over and over again for the past 5 years, you ain't fooling me, Mustard. That's the same beat that you keep flipping over and over again. But anyway, if you don't have that sound, you almost get shut out. And unless you're like an artist like a Beyonce that's just totally above everything. There's some that can kind of carve their own lane, but especially for an emerging artist, it's very, very difficult to find their sound. I think Stacey Barth was an excellent comparison of kind of the problems that we're dealing with right now.
Yep. So I want to finish off this podcast, a little early right now, but we haven't done an album look back in a while, so I want to take this time to look at this album. I know you guys are all fans of it. Playa's Cheers to You album.
Ooh, yes.
I'll go first. I think some people consider it a classic. Maybe you guys. I don't. But I think it's a quality album, and it kind of put Smokey Black and Static on the map for me. Yeah, some amazing songs that I still listen to this date. But overall, the album, I'm curious to hear what Ed would have rated that when it came out.
I don't think it is a classic. It's an album that I just love. It's from one of my favorite time periods. That was like around the time that like I was in college, and it's just like R&B and hip hop were just like hitting. Every song was just amazing. I would probably give it a 4.5. Just off the top of my head. I wouldn't go 5, but it was and definitely an album that I love to this day. And it even has a greater meaning now because after that album came out, as Kyle alluded to earlier, I moved to Louisville where Playa's from, probably about, that was 98. I moved there in 2001 when I graduated. So a lot of the songs, like they have a song called I-65, a lot of those songs had a deeper and better meaning. When I'm driving on I-65 listening to that song, I'm like, oh, this song is crazy. Shout out to my boy Smokey, who is still in the game, still trying to do his thing, and I love that album. Just love it. And so many songs still resonate today.
Do you think that the contrast in the sound is too much? Like it throws the flow up. Like you've got a banger like what's the first single called again?
Don't Stop
the Music. I mean, Kyle hates that song, but I love it. But then you've got ballads that are more toned down. You've got some crazy Timbaland productions, but then you've got the more subdued type of churchy ballads. Like, do you think it's too all over the place?
Well, I can't remember the story behind it, but if you listen to, like, Don't Stop the Music, and then there's, like, a bonus track featuring Foxy Brown at the end, they sound like they were pulled from other albums. Like, they didn't fit the complete sound of the album, but it didn't take away from it to me because it was, I think if there were more of those songs that broke up the vibe, I think it would be jarring. But just having that song and the other song, and again, I'm fans of those songs, so it didn't bother me. But I don't think it broke it up too much. I can understand someone being like, this doesn't really fit.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the album. The one thing I will say is that I was a little disappointed by the Timbaland production on that album. I wish there was a little more variety, because, I mean, Cheers to You and Everybody Wanna Love Somebody sound alike. Miss Parker and what's the other one? I'll Be To See You. Those two sound alike as well. I think if you had taken some of the play of songs that they did on Timbaland's albums, songs like Joy and Birthday, and put them onto this album, that would turn it into a classic.
I agree. Birthday is so underrated. And the best song in my opinion, to never have taken off like it should have was, what was their single that was shelved? Never Too Late.
Yeah.
Man, that is that was a hit. When that hit radio in Louisville, people went crazy. I'm like, these dudes are back. And it never took off because they had internal issues. But man, there's just so much potential there. That album drives me crazy because I feel like it should have been a launching point. But, life is life.
Tom, we're going to have to put that Never Too Late as a rare gem if you haven't already.
Yes, that needs to.
All right.
All right, so I want to leave this off on a food discussion. We're reaching the 45-minute point, and this one we'll probably talk about for the next 20 minutes. So are you guys ready for the food discussion?
I'm always ready.
Go for it.
All right. Guys, what is the weirdest food you've ever eaten?
Weirdest. I had alligator. I don't consider that weird, though.
Tom, is that weird?
That's weird. That's abnormal.
Listen, it's not like I'm eating it every day with my Cheerios, but it's good. It's kind of like, it was tough. It was kind of like a tough, like steak-like thing. But it's good. I've had that. I've had frog legs and escargot, and I don't eat chitlins because we aren't slaves anymore. MLK had a dream, and we are freed from that dream, so y'all need to stop eating that slave food. Stop eating those chitlins. God.
I mean, I'm still tripping off of people putting ketchup on eggs. That's weird to me.
That is weird.
You know me, I don't eat anything. I don't try anything. I mean, I pretty much all I eat is yogurt and granola bars and some pasta and maybe and some grilled chicken.
Ugh, like your inside, like if someone looked at your inside, it would look like that Elmer's glue that you had when you were like in 4th grade. That's what your insides look like. That's all you eat. The weirdest, goopiest stuff.
Weird,
you
man.
Eat porridge too?
I'm healthy as a bird over here.
I'm sure you are, but
oh man, Kyle.
Man. Well, I would say frog legs would actually probably be the grossest I've ever had. I actually came pretty close to eating dog meat once.
What?
This is no lie. I was in Asia at the time, and in some parts in China, they eat dog.
I did hear that's is that a delicacy there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely
I heard that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So, it was on the table. I was going to go for it until someone told me it was dog meat, so I put it down and did not eat it.
You know what that reminds me of? In New York City, they joke that the Chinese restaurants use cat meat instead of chicken. Like, they just pull in anything they can find off the street, like a stray cat or something.
Well, yeah, that ain't no New York thing. I've heard that everywhere. Like, apparently, like, they always say that outside of the Chinese places, you have to watch for stray cats and stuff. And if that's the case, those are some good cats because I love some random Chinese food. I don't care what y'all say. I go to the gym and burn it all so I can eat garbage. That's what I do.
Oh.
Yep.
Wait, have any of you guys ever eaten bugs?
No, this is not a fear factor. I don't eat.
That's a delicacy in some countries, man.
In some countries, Future is a delicacy in their earphone, but please.
Oh, man. You know,
did y'all eat
crickets?
chocolate? Yeah, like crickets and chocolate-covered ants and stuff? No.
Man, roaches and everything. No?
All right, one more question for you guys before we get out of here. I don't know if we're going to do a podcast in the next 2 weeks because Valentine's Day is coming up. So, Ed, being that I'm in a relationship now, I need some advice. What's going on for Valentine's Day? What do we need here?
Damn, I was planning to spend my Valentine's Day with you guys, podcasting.
I might need to talk to Marlene about that, player. Anyway, I love that we have like an impromptu love letter session here on the podcast today. Go to soulandstereo.com/love letters and see your boy give all types of love advice to the love Lauren out here. I was looking at the email before we got on. New content coming this week. Anyway, let's get our boy straight. What people do is they overthink Valentine's Day, and they think that they have to like spend all this money and do all this stuff. Look, your boy is cheap. And if you are with a girl who understands your finances, she's going to know that she's not married to Scrooge McDuck. So don't feel like you have to go out and do a lot of spending, but you just have to make the day special. So you just have to do something out of the ordinary or something that she will appreciate without breaking the bank.
I feel like flowers and chocolates is like a fail. Personally, there's no thought in that.
No, it's too. You have to make it personal. Like you have to put some type of personal thing in. Chocolates and flowers is something you saw like Lisa Simpson get on The Simpsons. Like don't do that. Like do something meaningful that's gonna actually be remembered next year this time.
Sounds like you got some work to do, Kyle.
Man, I was looking at my calendar and I realized that Valentine's Day falls on the same day as the NBA All-Star Week, so we might do that.
Lesson number 2, homie. Like, the cost of love is losing some of your sports time, so you just gonna have to. This is reality for you.
I'll take the L.
Wow.
I'll take the L. So, all right, Ed, let's wrap this up. What's going on with Soul and Stereo right now?
Well, as we talked about a little bit earlier, we had the King review. Check that out on Soul and Stereo if you haven't already. We'll have some more love letters coming up this week since Valentine's Day is approaching us and the emails are flooding in. And I think pretty soon, in the next day or two, we'll have a review of SWV, and that will be featured on YouKnowIGotSoul.com, so you guys know where to go and find that. Just look on the little right rail for the review section, and you'll see my thoughts on SWV, and just giving you a little teaser, the album's pretty freaking good.
Nice. And Tom, we actually just interviewed Genuine yesterday. I'm going to post the article soon, but TGT they're in a weird state right now. They're not together, but they're not broken up. So I'll post a full article on it later. But Tom, what else do we have going on?
I'm interviewing SWV on Tuesday. Hopefully, I can mention. Hopefully, Ed's review is done in time, so I can mention it to them. I'm sure they'll appreciate the feedback and the good review. Cool. Tank, he's in town for a release event tomorrow here in New York, so I'll be there. Probably interview him. Definitely gonna ask him some of these tough questions that we've been debating. So that'll be fun. And then other than that, we're just going to keep pushing forward some of these articles we've been putting out, interesting topics we're trying to analyze. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome, man. To all the listeners that are, checking out this podcast right now, if you want more of Ed's love advice, visit his website. And if you want it on this podcast, just let us know, and we'll do a weekly love session with Ed.
Man, wow. I don't know if the podcasting world is ready for the love letters to infiltrate. Tom, you ain't seen nothing until you see these questions that I have infiltrate this thing. Man, it's crazy.
You know what I want to hear from you? I want someone to present a problem, Dear Ed or whatever, and I want you to give them a song that will help them solve their problem.
Wow.
I'm feeling that idea. I'm feeling that.
Yep.
Don't give me a challenge because I'll meet it.
I was kind of joking, but now that I think about it, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the two people that are apparently going to save R&B, but we'll see. Anyway, we are out of here. It's been a crazy podcast. We'll check back sometime soon. Hopefully by the end of Valentine's Day, I still am in a relationship, but we'll see. But with that all being said, we are out of here. This is Kyle signing out. Tom and Ed, we are 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 out. Tom and Ed, we are